Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Damo Honey Processed Ethiopia from Blind Tiger Coffee. And there's the bag right there. And Blind Tiger, based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and this is their second time appearing on this channel, as last year we reviewed their Aceas Fernandez in anaerobic wash process Honduras as part of our viewer-subscriber recommendation suggestion series. And that coffee was suggested to us by our good buddy Zach, so shout out to and thank you to Zach for that suggestion. Now if you watched that video, then you'll know that we felt we didn't necessarily get that coffee right. There was just something off about the way we were working through that coffee. So we said to Zach, hey, next time there's a coffee that you really enjoy, let us know and we'll do our best to purchase it. But he actually went above and beyond and sent us this bag, as he had an extra bag of this coffee. So I'm very much looking forward to giving Blind Tiger a second shot. I was going to do so regardless. This right here is day 27 of this coffee. And recipe we went with was one that was suggested to us by Zach, which was a 16:1 water to coffee ratio brewed at 93 degrees Celsius, about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, through the V60 with a medium fine grind. And they are a light medium American for the roast profile. And let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee. Day 7, first impression, and it was a really positive first impression. I quite liked the coffee. It was a livelier than expected cup of coffee. There was an abundance of sweet citrus fruits right from the start, unique in its own sense. It definitely justified the listed tangerine note on here, as I would describe this coffee most closely aligned with tangerine more than any coffee I'd had previously. Looking at the tasting wheel, I was just kind of wondering if they had tangerine listed on there, and they had clementine, and yeah, I would go with clementine as well. It's very specific. Weird thing about me, I eat at least 2 tangerines or clementines every single day. So yeah, that was kind of fun. There was a ginger in the cup, and we had mentioned in previous reviews that I don't necessarily love ginger, but I liked the way that the ginger in this cup was, as it wasn't dominant, it wasn't too pronounced, but it was there, and it was in a toned down sense that let you know it was there, but didn't, it wasn't over the top in this cup. So as that first impression goes, it was actually a really, really positive first impression. Day 8, ran it through the Chemex to see if it would be similar or any better, and it actually just felt lacking. So I feel like the Chemex wasn't the ideal brew method for this coffee. The acidity in the cup was a little bit more present, and there was a slight bit of an herbal taste to it, which I will attribute to the noted spice that they have here. I mean, ginger, notable spice, but it was just a little bit more herbal at this time. So not necessarily the best. Went back on day 10 and will continue to emphasize the delightful sweetness in this cup. One more thing I wanted to mention was for the grind, I went 1 notch coarser than normal for a V60 just because it was suggested to me, and I actually really liked the way that it turned out. And when I went back to a normal grind, then it wasn't necessarily the same, so I think that that was a great little tip for this coffee. But there was a really nice explosion of citrus flavor in the cup as it had cooled down, and it was quite sweet. So a lot of times you can get citrus and it's a little bit too, well, for lack of a better term, citric, as opposed to having some great sweetness, but the sweetness in this cup was really, really nice. There was definitely a sparkling and vibrant floral in the cup present as well. They have a listed jasmine flavor note. Yeah, definitely present in this cup of coffee. Made it a very solid cup on day 10 as well. Day 11, another try through the Chemex, and it was a better cup than the first time tried, but it really just does ramp up a lot of the citric acidity in the cup, and there was a slight bit more of the florals in it this way, but again, I think I was just stripping out the great sweetness that was coming from this. As mentioned before, Chemex can sometimes strip some things, and stripping sweetness is going to be one of the worst things you can strip from me. Good day, V60 definitely preferred, was done with the Chemex for this coffee. Day 13, back to the given recipe and strong sweetness, citric sweetness in this cup. It's much more clean, fresh fruits as well, and that's another thing I wanted to emphasize, was it was a lot more akin to the fresh fruits as opposed to the artificial fruits. That's wonderful. I really like that about this coffee. Slight ginger spice, but also a seemingly interesting bit of candy sweetness that I really liked. And I was getting this from time to time with this candy sweetness that I say is present in a lot of Manhattan's coffees, and it's a huge selling point to me, so I really liked having it in this coffee. Day 16, worked through the coffee with a slightly altered recipe, and it was relatively muted. It was a recipe that was suggested to me by Zach. I don't want to talk about this too much because I don't think it necessarily did the coffee too much justice. So day 16, not just necessarily the best day. And then day 19, have seen a bit of a shift in the coffee. So the coffee initially started out, as we had mentioned, it was very kind of this tangerine, clementine sweetness in huge abundance, with a slight bit of the florals and a slight bit of the herbs, the spice, that ginger that was coming from it. We were seeing a little less of that sweet citric cup and a little bit more of that kind of herbal spice cup. So that wasn't necessarily the best thing. Still lasting candy sweetness, which as mentioned was really nice about this cup, as well as some of those sparkling florals, but not quite as it had been from the earlier days. And as I'm drinking it today, it's kind of weird because it's definitely taken a lot more of a kind of floral and even spice-like shift in this cup. So it's definitely not the same sort of cup I enjoyed from the very start, but it definitely does have a lot of vibrancy to it. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we're getting. For level 4s, let's go through them. So the cleanliness, yeah, really clean cup of coffee, especially for a honey processed coffee. I think this is wonderful in terms of the cleanliness for the honey processed. And then the finish, level 4, it has a very nice finish, and it's not dominating, it's not too much. I think it's perfect at the level 4. Sweetness, we've been touching on that a lot. Even now, it still has a very strong bit of sweetness. It's not overpowering in that either. I love when the sweetness is at a level 4 for a cup of coffee, so that's wonderful. And then the citrus fruit, naturally, as you'd expect, level 4. I mean, in theory, you can bump it all the way up to a 5, especially given just how distinct the citric components in this cup were. But I like it better at that 4, as again, it's just not dominating. It's not too powerful in this cup. Other things worth noting, quite a bit of 3s, and the caramel I bumped all the way up to a 3 because I said that there was a really nice bit of candy sweetness, and I would say at times it was the secondary most dominant component in this cup, so I really like it there at that level 3. Saltiness, it's a little saltier than I think I would have expected, and I think if you kind of focus on that, you can definitely pick that out. Spice, yeah, definitely, we've been talking about that ginger a lot, and getting more of the ginger isn't necessarily a positive thing, but when it was kind of in this slightly more muted capacity, I was really enjoying the cup of coffee. And the florals, yeah, definitely a strong, sparkling bit of floral. The jasmine note that they have listed on here, definitely there. Acidity level 2, I mean, this is ideal for my tasting wheel. Low on the acidity, high on the sweetness, high on the cleanliness, and strong on the fruits. Yeah, and you can imagine I would really like this cup of coffee. Body, level 3, yeah, had a nice fair bit of body to it as well. Don't think that there's too much else worth noting in this tasting wheel. I think it looks really good, actually, as I'm drinking it today on day 27 as well. All right, overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee, really, really positive. And this is, I said to Zach very early on after I tried this coffee that I got it. I finally understood why he's such a huge fan of Blind Tiger and why it's one of his favorite coffee roasters, because this was a great cup of coffee. I'm not saying it was a great cup of coffee. I enjoyed it from start to finish. I have seen it taper off a slight bit, probably post that day 13 mark, but it could have been because I had altered the recipe slightly. But even then, towards day, we'll say 19 on, it wasn't quite the same cup of coffee I had experienced early on, but it had set the bar for itself really, really high early on from being such a nice, sweet, and clean cup of coffee that it was going to be kind of tricky for it to continue to replicate that huge positive first impression from that point on. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to. Well, it's too bad that it's gone now, because I think that this is a really nice one for people that do like a very distinct sort of clementine and a tangerine taste. It was there in huge abundance, and it was by far the most pronounced flavor note in here. And the secondary notes were quite nice too. As mentioned, the ginger early on wasn't too overpowering, and I felt it was a really nice contrast to the strong citric cup that was this coffee. So I think for the most part, anybody that likes that, keep in mind the roast profile on this as well. But this won't be my last Blind Tiger coffee. I'm looking forward to trying another one in the future, as this left a really positive impression for me about this coffee roaster. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. If you by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee or any other coffees from Blind Tiger, I would love to know your thoughts and impressions of them as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Damo honey processed Ethiopia from Blind Tiger Coffee. Thank you for watching.